Hey, I want to start off today's message with a simple question that I think will resonate with so many of you. This is a question that some of the greatest minds have been trying to wrestle with for quite some time. Some of the greatest spiritual leaders all across the world, all across the nation have been wrestling with this question, trying to find the answer to it. And the question is this: are you ready? Why do kids have so much energy? Why does it seem like they have a never-ending supply of energy? Like, do you remember the old Energizer Bunny commercials? Like the rabbit that would just keep going and would keep going and keep going and keep going. And like, if you've ever been to a kid's birthday party, you know what I'm talking about. It's like they just are jumping up and down in the bounce houses. They're running everywhere. They're just so sweaty all of the time. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Kids just are always sweaty because they're always going. They're always doing something. They've got so much energy all of the time. And it reminds me of a story this last week. Michaela and I have been trying really hard to get off of our screens so much and spend more personal time with our kids. That way she knows who we are. And we've been playing hide and seek a lot lately. And Kins takes hide and seek very seriously. I mean, you will not find a better hider than her. In fact, her favorite spot this week has been underneath the blanket in my wife's arms. She's 2. Give her some slack. And she's playing hide and seek. She's like, "Oh, can you find me?" And she's literally in her mother's arms. "Can you find me?" And I've got to do that thing, that everybody kind of has to do at some point in their life. "Oh, where are you? I have no idea where you can be." And I have to spend 5 minutes walking around this lump in the middle of my living room. Like it's not a good hiding spot, but I'm just trying to not be on my screen and spend time with her. And the thing about Kins is she takes everything very serious. So she is the best hider in the world, and she's just energized, and she's playing, she's excited, she's going. But the problem is, not only is she very energetic, but we're also in the middle of potty training. And sometimes those two things don't go well together. And she doesn't want to stop playing. And so she's playing hide and seek. She's in my wife's arms, and she's underneath this blanket. And then all of a sudden, my wife just feels the warmth of water rushing down her arms, all over her. It was like Noah's Ark. There was just water everywhere. But the thing is, catch this, though this was horribly disgusting to my wife and myself, if I have to be honest, to be used the bathroom on, in case you didn't catch that, Kins did not care one bit. She was just energetic. She was just happy to be there. She was just a little wet, not a big deal for her. She was ready to keep on playing and keep on going, while for Michaela and I, our world stopped. And I would like to say that's the only case where one of us have been used the bathroom on, and that's just not true. It's becoming a pattern right now because she's got so much energy, she's got so much going on, she just doesn't want to stop play for the potty. Can anyone relate with that? I thought no one would raise their hands. They're like, yes, I understand that completely. I think it would be really easy to chalk up children's playtime, to chalk up children's energy and excitement with, "Oh, well, they're just young. Kids just have energy and they just don't stop." But I think, as I was thinking about my wife and I being used the bathroom on this week, I think there's something deeper that going on here. And as I was thinking about it, I don't think it's the fact that she's just excited for play. I think it's the fact that she's excited for life. I think it's the fact that she knows that she doesn't have anything in her life to worry about. I think it's the fact that she knows that she's secure. And that if there's anything that she needs, all she has to do is ask her dad for it. Some of you, are you catching what I'm saying? I think the part of the reason that she's not stressed, that she's not worried, that she's not freaked out is because she's perfectly secure in her father and mother's love. And I think there's something that could be said about that for us. Part of the reason that we're so tired all the time, part of the reason that we're so exhausted all the time, part of the reason we can go to bed and we can wake up and still feel tired is because we have a hard time trusting our Father to take care of us, because we let the weight of the world bear on us. But what happens is when you need something, when you need help, when you need a pick-me-up, we ought to be able to go to the Father and put our hope, our trust in him, and he should refresh our spirits. There's something about not having to carry the weight of the world and trusting Jesus that should give us a freedom in our life to walk lighter. And that's why I want some of you guys to write this down. Just because you are weary doesn't mean you have to stay weary. Some of us have been tired for so long that we've forgotten that you don't have to be tired forever. But there actually is a rest for your soul, and his name is Jesus. There actually is a rest for your life, his name is Jesus. And if you put your hope and your faith and your trust in him and you let him carry the burdens of life, you get to walk a little bit lighter. In fact, look at what Jesus says in Matthew 11:28. He says this, "Come to me all who are" what? Weary. "Come to me all who are" what? Burdened, and I will give you rest. If you're taking notes, I want to break down this command for you. I want to break down this exact command from Matthew 11:28. Number one, if you're taking notes, write this down. Jesus first says, "Come to me." Come to me. It's amazing to me, Christians, I'm talking to Christians now. It's amazing to me how far you'll allow yourselves to go before you actually begin to rest in Jesus. It's amazing to me how often Jesus is kind of our last case, or our worst case scenario, or our last resort. We'll go everywhere else. We'll do everything else. I mean, we'll go to the gym. We'll go talk to a psychologist, psychiatrist. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these, but before we go to Jesus, we'll try to cover all of the bases. And if then nothing else works, we'll say, okay, I'll go to Jesus and I'll trust him. I'll see what he's got for me. And I think I would like to flip the script on that, Christians. When you're tired, when you're weary, when you are absolutely exhausted, what could happen in your life if you go to Jesus first and you rest in him first and you trust in him first? And what I love about that word where Jesus says, "Come to me," the word in the Greek is this, douta. Douta. Look at your neighbor and say, douta. Douta is not just like a, hey, if you got time in your schedule, hey, if nothing else worked out, hey, if you can't quite figure it out and you need some help from old dad, then come on, you can come to me. But actually that word douta is a command. That word is, come here. Come on, come here now. And I'm thinking about my own daughter, right? When she can't do something, when she can't quite figure something out. I mean, you got kids, you know. It's as simple as like she can't open a bag of like Nutrigrain bar bites or whatever. She can't get her snack open. She can't open the lid to her cup. And she's working so hard, and man, she's got anger. She gets it from her mama. She's got anger, and and she throws her cup, and then she's just frustrated. And what do we do? Come here, bring me that. And what is hard for her is incredibly easy for us. I just pop the lid. Here you go. And man, what if we take that same concept and we apply that to the God who loves us, the God who cares about our souls? Whatever it is you're going through, whatever it is that you're frustrated with, whatever it is that you can't manage to get under control, Jesus is saying, hey, come to me. It's easy for me. What's hard for you is easy for me. Let me begin to work. And why don't you wait while I work? Yeah. I can fix that problem. I wonder how often Jesus is looking at us as we render ourselves absolutely exhausted. And he says, douta, come here. Trust in me. Let me encourage you today, church. Are you tired? No, let me rephrase that. Where are you tired? The answer is, yeah, I know. I see half y'all out here I'm greeting or while we're doing worship and I'm supposed to be worshiping, I'm talking to you. I'm sorry, by the way, Garrett, I'm sorry, you guys. I just like to talk. And I say, how you doing? I'm tired. I was like, oh, okay, you're still tired. It's been 2 years. Every time I talk to you, I'm tired. Where are you tired at, church? Are you tired with your job? Can we be honest? Are you tired being a parent? Are you, be more honest, are we tired in your relationships? Go to Jesus. He says, come to me, and wherever you find yourself tired and exhausted, go to Jesus and allow him to begin to work in those areas and give you the rest that your soul desires. My question is, why do we wait though? Like, if I can create a little bit of resistance this morning, why is it that we wait? I would argue that most of us don't seek the peace, the presence, and the power of Jesus in our day-to-day lives, but we only seek him in our panic. It's only when everything goes wrong and you're like, I don't know about that. Well, let me remind you of a story in the Bible. If you've ever heard the story, or maybe you grew up in children's church hearing this story, there was this time where Jesus goes to sleep in a boat. Are you familiar with this story? He goes to sleep in a boat, and when it's just another beautiful Labor Day weekend on the water, the disciples are having a great time on the boat, enjoying life. The sun's shining, it's beautiful, and then all of a sudden, what happens? A storm comes up. And it's only in the storm that they go, wow, we need to go be in the presence of Jesus. And I know it's a practicality thing. You and I would do the same thing. But it makes for a great idea as we think about our day-to-day lives. What if we change our perspective, and it's not only in the storm, it's not only in the panic that we seek out the presence and persons of Jesus, but it's in our all-day, everyday life. When life is good, when life is bad, when there's a storm, or whenever the sun is shining, we have to go. We have to be in the presence of Jesus. And check this out. I think the more weight that you bear, the more weary you become. Do you catch that? The more weight that you bear, the more weary you become. I know quite a few of you here in this house, you go to the gym, you do some type of exercise, and got me thinking, it's like you can lift weight for a period of time, and it'll make you stronger, right? We know this, but there's a point where the scales tip. When you lift too much weight, it doesn't make you bigger, but it actually breaks you. Sometimes a little bit of resistance in our life can cause growth. Sometimes the Lord will use some resistance in our life to cause us to walk or to follow or to trust in him. But sometimes when we carry more than what Christ asked us to carry, that weight begins to break us. And so sometimes you got to push yourself. Sometimes you got to push yourself and trust in the Lord. You got to push yourself and say, no, my God's got me. He is faithful. In every season, my God is faithful. Whenever the sun is shining on that beautiful lake day or the storm is coming, I know that my God has got me. Whether everything in my job is going so well, or it seems like everything in my job is on its head, I know that God is faithful in every season. And so Matthew 11:29, Jesus goes on and he says, but here's what I want you to do. He says, take my yoke upon you, and I want you to learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your what? For your souls. Some of you right now, you're looking for rest for your body, but some of you don't need a rest for your body. You actually need a rest for your soul. And the only way that you can do that is by trusting and leaning into him, right? There's a thing where you can sleep all the time, you can eat all the right foods, and you can still find yourself tired and exhausted. Why? It's because your soul is absolutely depleted. And you have to go to Jesus. Some of you guys say, man, why is it that you guys are always lifting your hands in worship? Why is it that you speak so loud or you talk so loud? Why is it that you're so charismatic? Is this like a charismatic thing, this church? And it's like, no. It's not a charismatic thing. It's a surrender thing. There's a point in your life where your soul is just so in need, so desires the Holy Spirit, so desires the presence of Jesus that you have to lift your hands, you have to lift your voice, and you have to go into the presence of God and say, here I am, I need to meet with you again. Will you meet me here and rest my soul? When you leave church, you're not supposed to feel more exhausted than when you came in. When you leave church, you were supposed to have an encounter with God, and it changed you forever. It changed you. You walk out of there feeling lighter, feeling like I met with Jesus today, and it was good for my soul. See, there's something that happens in the human condition where a lot of us will say, thought number 2 is this, learn from me. A lot of us will say this: I have no problem going to Jesus, but where I really have a problem is learning from Jesus. A lot of us are really, really good going to God, but then whenever God gives us a command, whenever God gives us a challenge, whenever God calls us to a deeper place, we're like, okay, that's where it gets hard for us. And if you are one of those people, I would say, hey, you're actually not alone. That's kind of the story of humanity, right? Here's how it goes. God and creation, they're at peace. And then creation rejects God. And then God lets creation try things out for their own for a little while. Creation fails horribly, as we do, and then cries back out to God for help. God rescues us, pulls us back into his peace, and we have a tendency to repeat that cycle over and over and over again. That is the story of the Bible, by the way. If you look at the children of Israel, that is the pattern that happens over and over and over and over again, and you and I were not so different. So what is Jesus asking we do? Not just to go to him, but to break the cycle, to break the pattern, to break this consistent thing of trying to do it on your own, but to truly go to him in your everyday life, your everyday living, your walking, your breathing is trusting in him. We've got to learn to live our life faithfully following in the footsteps of Christ. And he uses this illustration of taking my yoke and putting it on. If you don't know what a yoke is, because maybe that doesn't quite translate great in today's context, it was this wooden beam, oftentimes put on oxen, but it really could be put on any kind of cattle or any kind of animal like that, to where they would pull a plow or a cart or something behind them together in unison. And Jesus says, hey, you've already got a yoke on and it's pretty heavy. It's wearing you out. It's exhausting you, but I want you to trade your yoke for mine. And so if I can create some tension again, here's what I would say. It's the religious that are rigid. This is who Jesus is talking about in this context and in this story. Throughout the New Testament, oftentimes you see this kind of unique perspective in the faith, where Jesus tends to have a lot of grace and a lot of care and a lot of compassion for who? The unsaved, the unchurched, those who are not following in God's footsteps. And he tends to be a little bit more rigid and frustrated with who? The religious leaders. Why? Because they're putting a heavy weight on people. And so Matthew 23:4, look at what he says about the religious. He says, it's them. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads, and they put them on other people's shoulders. But they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. There's quite a lot of weariness that comes with perfectionism. And if I can be honest with you, share a little bit about my life. If you know me, you already know this. I have a real bad tendency for perfectionism. I went out to coffee with some friends this week, and as we were talking about how, like, when I set my phone on a table, it can't be sideways. I gotta, like, make sure it's at a great 90-degree angle with the table. Like, I'm always, like, walking around my office, and I'm, like, tweaking things and dusting things and cleaning things, and it's a nightmare to be married to me because my wife's just trying to relax, and I can't relax. I'm always seeking out perfectionism. I'm always cleaning, doing things. And that perfectionism is a heavy burden to carry. That perfectionism, though it looks like it's going to make everything better, actually renders me tired. And my wife will tell you, when my head hits the pillow most nights, I am gone. Like, I have no problems most nights falling asleep. And Jesus is talking to these religious leaders who are expecting perfection out of these Jewish believers. They can't mess up. They can't get things wrong. They have to do things perfect all of the time. Yet Jesus knows their heart, and he says, well, they expect that out of you, but they themselves aren't even living the same way. Right? They're not even doing the same thing. Some of us need to know that we can find ourselves so tired and exhausted all the time because we are trying to step in the place of Jesus, and we ourselves are seeking out perfection. We ourselves are trying to do it all right, carry all of it, do everything, but the reality is, Christ never called us to carry it all ourselves. Where we fall, where we fail, and where we mess up, he says, walk with me. Take up my yoke and let it be easy. When you mess up, I'm right here with you. I'm right here to recover you. To close things out here today, I love Matthew 11, 28, 30 in the Message. And I hope it's okay that I'm reading from the Message. It's just a paraphrase, but I like how it goes. Matthew 11, 28, he says this. Are you tired? Hey, are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Here's these words from Jesus again. He says, come to me, Duta. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. And I'll show you how to take a real rest. He says, walk with me. Work with me, that's that yoke, and watch how I do it. He says, and I want you to learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And this is how Eugene Peterson sees it. He says, I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. So thought number one is come to me. Thought number two is learn from me. And thought number three, he says, walk with me. Come to me, learn from me, and now walk with me. What I want to do is get to a place in my own life where my daily rhythm is unbothered, is unworried. I was even trying to practice this before I preached it today, right? We just were really kind of down in volunteers this morning setting up for service, and there was things just not set up the way it normally should be or as quickly as it should be before we went into service, and I was trying to just be so calm. God's got it. This service is the Lord's. If we get together and you got to grab some chairs as you come in, everything's okay. God is still on the throne. We don't need perfectionism in this church. We need his presence. And so I was just trying to rest my soul. Hey, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And it's just in this daily rhythm, trusting God that he is sufficient and he is enough in every season. We don't have to panic. We don't have to worry. Can I use an illustration that I promise you I will use until election season is over? You don't got to panic about what's going on in the political sphere. For I don't care who's in the White House, my God is on the throne. And he is bigger than any White House or any country or any continent. He is bigger than all of the universe. And my faith and my trust is in him, not in a political party. So you want to talk all you want about who's doing what and where they're going and what they're going to do for our country, fine. But the Lord orders my steps. So you worry all you want. You panic all you want. But for me, I'm going to trust in him and I'm going to walk with him. For he is the lover of my soul. He is the father of my soul, and I will rest in him. And I've shared this story one time before, but it's too good not to share. The position in the office that I have the honor of holding and I get to sit in is kind of a nebulous one if you're not familiar with it. See, I get this question more times than I can count. Someone will come up to me, we'll be at a gathering, or we'll be at a party for like Michaela's work, or I'll find myself just somewhere out in the world, and people find out that I'm a pastor, and the very next question is like clockwork. So what is it that a pastor does? Right, it's this nebulous idea. What is it that you actually do? And there's this false ideology that pastors sit in this grand office surrounded by books and they just spend all day praying and seeking the face of God and preparing for sermons. And that is just so far from the truth. Some of my sermons aren't finished until I'm walking on stage, by the way, in case you're wondering. Like, ooh, that was a rough one. That was because I didn't get it finished. And so I would love that if that really was all that I got to do. Just love people and write sermon series. And so one of these times, a member of the dream team, a congregation member here in our church, asked me that same question. So what is it that pastors do? And in my excitement and arrogance, I pulled out this Excel sheet that I have. It's entitled, An Exhaustive List of Everything That I Do. And I was so excited to turn my computer around and be like, hey, look, this is all that I do. Look at everything I do. Isn't that exciting? Aren't you glad at just how hard I work and all the things that I do and my checklist and my reminders and my to-do list? And I'm excited to showcase just how hard I'm working for the Lord to see this church grow. And she stops and she is just unfazed by all that I'm doing. And she goes, yeah, but like, when do you rest? Like, when do you grab a cup of coffee and you just sit out on the porch and you just take in the power and the presence of our God? Close my laptop. I was like, oh God, please save me. Save my soul. Save this church. And God used someone in the congregation to convict me and remind me it's not how hard I work that leads to the success or failures of our church. The Bible says that He will build His church. I just get to rest in Him. I get to come to Him. I get to learn from Him. And I get to walk with Him. Whatever it may look like, I get to walk in Him with seasons of good and seasons of bad. And I get to trust Him. And I don't have to panic about how the church is doing, about how this is going or that is going. I get to just be at peace. My soul and my spirit gets to be at peace because it's not on my shoulders. It's on His. And He carried something so much heavier than this. He carried the cross and He died on it, forgiving all of us of our sins and making a way to where we get to rest in His peace. Yep. So what are you panicked about today, church? What are you worried for? What is it that just so has you stressed? Can I encourage you? Rest in Him. You want to know one of my little soapboxes that I like to get on? Application portion right here. If you're not doing it, I'm going to step all over your toes and I don't care. Take your Sabbath seriously. Right? Like we read about this and we think, oh yeah, I should take a day of rest whenever it comes around. No. This is a command from the Lord. Take your Sabbath seriously. There should be a day in your week where you go to the Lord like this space here. You go to church and you just trust in Him. You surrender to Him. You don't do any work that day because you know your God has all the finances in the world. You don't do anything. You just trust in Him. And you know He's got you taken care of. He's got your life figured out. So are you tired? Are you exhausted from all the weight of the world? Jesus says, come to me, all who labor and who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And humanity often is looking to put their rest in so many other things. If I can just make more money, if I can just do this new endeavor, if I can just follow this path or that path, and I just work and I just grind and I hustle. And Jesus tells us to stop and take a day and just rest in His presence. Rest in Him. Some of y'all think I'm joking, But on your way out the door on church on Sundays, I say go home and do nothing. Go home, get some really bad Chinese food, some really bad food for you. Not that the food's bad, it's bad for you. You sit on that couch and you just thank the Lord for all that he's doing in your life. Just rest in him. So what are you carrying today? Can I challenge you with this? Rest it at the feet of Jesus. And I don't mean to insult your intelligence, but it needs to be said. What you and I have a tendency to do is we hear a message like this, you hear a pastor who's passionate and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going home, I'm gonna rest, I'm gonna put it at the feet of Jesus, and then tomorrow, Monday happens, and you pick it back up and you're like, all right, I've rested for a day, I'm gonna carry it now and take it with me. Stop it. If you're gonna trust Jesus with it, leave it at his feet. And now you walk freely, and you walk lightly, and you walk in the freedom that the rest of the world doesn't have. The Lord has given us a gift, and we get to walk lighter and freer, trusting that he has us all taken care of. So here, I don't want to insult you, but if you're going to lay it at his feet and trust him with it, then stop insulting him by picking it back up. He's not a pit stop on your hike, but your walk every single day. You should trust him with it. Are you worried about your finances? Trust him with it. Are you worried about the housing market? Trust him with it. Are you so worried, and this isn't a joke, so don't laugh. Are you so worried that you cannot find that special someone and you're going to live forever alone? Stop it. Trust him. Trust his timing, and lean in and know that if you truly believe in this word, if you truly believe in this God, then you've got to trust him with it. Would you pray with me, church?